Hello, it's that time again. 8:30 weekday. It's Drinks Coach at Drinks Coach UK, or lowercase, on Instagram and Twitter. My personal feed, Vinesack, in the same. You are watching Drinks Coach UK on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button and hit the bell if you want notification of other shows coming up. And indeed, if you want to donate some money to Drinks Trust, look in the caption below and there'll be a link to our Drinks Trust Just Giving page. Today's a special one. I met some friends to try and cut a very long story short. You know me. My wife was helping somebody who lives in the Snowdonia National Park to be allowed to live on her land sustainably and to live off grid. It's called the One Planet Development. It's all over Wales. They're very, very advanced in the ecological things over there, and it's a government sanctioned thing. While she was working for this lovely lady Annie up a mountainside, I decided to go for a bit of a drive looking for interesting things. And because Annie was looking to buy apple trees to put in her land for sort of eco reasons, we heard about this couple, Bill Bleasdale and Hava Richmond, who both live up a mountainside above a town called Llanidloes. Llanidloes is a really lovely little town in the middle of nowhere, Wales. I don't mean it in a bad way, but it's lovely how sort of cut off it is from horribleness. At about 1,000 feet up a hill, they have an orchard. And they sell trees and they sell cider. I've drunk a lot of cider in my life, and I've drunk a lot of cider pretending I knew what I talked about. And I certainly know more about it now than I did when I was younger. But cider was my drink of choice at university. I was drinking Westerns, extra dry and things like that at university, in old glass bottles. Returned the bottle, got money back. We've got 4 ciders for you from up a mountainside. Now, common science would suggest that you can't grow trees, good apple trees, this far up a mountain, this far north. It's really considered that Hereford, up to a point, is pretty much the sort of like the most northerly line for making really good cider. It's clearly not true, and in fact, trees grown up a hill have to fight for their right to party, and they become incredibly hardy, and they produce incredible fruit. As does Annie, my wife's friend. Up a mountainside, grows the best Cavallonero you've ever eaten and the best herbs. They've just got this bite to them. Hardy things. So we've got 7 minutes to taste 4 different ciders and just to talk about them in general. Cider means a lot of things to a lot of people. And to you, cider might mean Copperberg in a pub. It could be Old Moots or something. That's so far removed from what real cider is that it's not funny. But it doesn't mean it's a bad drink, and you're entitled to drink whatever you like. They might be well made, but we're talking about natural things here. We're talking about apples pulled off a tree, squished at room temperature using an old press, conditioned in a tank or a barrel for anything up to 2 years, then bottled without any sulfur, without any treatments, with nothing. Whatever antiseptic these ciders have is in the cider. And the level of complexity and flavour you get in these ciders is just hard to understand. Welsh Mountain Cider, look it up. Hopefully we'll have a link. These aren't cheap ciders. They go from £7 to £12 or something a bottle, but they're big bottles. But you'll notice these ciders, the first 2 ciders, are 7 years old. They're from 2013, and they're kind of just ready. The next 2, the last 2, which are the sort of like the latest releases, very, very excited about talking about them. I'll tell you a bit more in a minute. Anyway, so first one. This is Welsh Mountain Cider Vintage Dry 2003. Nice big glass. Thank you to Sulcombe Gin for your gin balloons and your bar blade. Thank you very much. Man, you've got to drink it out of a glass like a red wine. These wines have tannin like a red wine. These wines have fruit like a red wine. They have oxidative notes and reductive notes like a red wine. This is just as justifiable in front of a roast beef than a bottle of Burgundy. And frankly, sometimes it's going to be better. I think that cider with lamb is almost better than any other wine you can drink. And also, if you go to Bill and Hava Richmond's orchard and sit down and have lunch with them, there's always a Stonehenge-sized lump of Keats cheddar. And you can't say that any wine goes with cheddar as well as Welsh or English cider does. It just doesn't. So, here we are. Have a taste. Ooh. Most importantly, bone dry. This has had no sugar added to it. This is rated at 6% alcohol. At 13, I think he told me was his miracle year. Beautiful, beautiful warm fruits. Great acidity. God, there's so much going on. I don't know where to begin, and there's not much time, so I'm going to carry on opening them. But this is kind of his gentlest cider, although if you're not ready for it, it does swing a punch. I think he describes it as his breakfast cider, but I mean, if I drank that for breakfast, I'd rather drink mezcal for breakfast. But it's very, very good cider. Now, the second cider here, this is a cider from a single variety. This is Flanders Cox, which is related to one of the greatest eating apples in the world. It's often said that the Cox's orange Pippin is the greatest English eating apple. And apple varieties are, in the British categorisation, broken into 4 types. You've got sharps, bittersweets, and sweets. And it's down to how much tannin they've got or how little acidity they've got, because the sugar's fairly constant. So if it's less acidic and less bitter, it'll taste sweeter. And this is really a dessert apple in some ways, but it has enough tannin and so forth to balance the cider. But this is a cider, probably the only cider in the range that you may perhaps consider refrigerating. These are all at room temperature, but it's got fragrance and a keen acidity that reminds me of drinking a really artisan, naturally made organic Sancerre or a Puy Fumé or something. Oh, it's got a lovely smell of green apple peel, like Granny Smith. Rhubarb. A little bit of bark in there almost, but then in a nice way. Man. I'd leave that another year. That cider's 6 years old, and it's delicious. And take it from me, it goes very well with King's Cheddar. Right, so these two are ciders are still available. They still have stocks of 13s and possibly 14s. I haven't seen their 15s yet, I don't think. And their 16 was a very exciting venture for them for 2 reasons. First of all, they launched a cider here called Borders Bittersweet, which we're going to open in a minute, which is a contract orchard, which used to belong in the old days when Strongborough and Bulmers were seriously, seriously good cider made properly like this, in old wooden barrels with no crap thrown in. They used to have orchards of most incredible apple varieties. The one variety that is probably most prevalent in this particular orchard, and you can taste it in this drink, it's my favourite cider apple, is Herefords Red Streak, which is an absolute banger of a bitter. And look at the colour on that. So it's 2016. There's a lot more extract in this one. I think we're now about a tenner for a large bottle. This is a 75 centilitre bottle, remember. These two are 66 centilitres. They're around 7-ish pounds. £10, I think the last one's 12. Oh my God, when I smell that, it just blows me away. It's got subtle cedary qualities that remind me of a really old, like, Reserva Rioja or something. It transcends apples. There are very few things that transcend their base fruit, but we can all agree that grapes are one of them. Grapes can taste very ungrape-like in wine. And cider is proof, especially natural cider, that apples are capable of the same thing. And of course, in this country, by law, a cider can be 25% pears. A perry, which is a pear cider, can be 25% apple. So they're all mixed in. These apple trees take a very, very long time to grow. It's just not enough time in the world to drink this much cider. It's good. Might put some in my soup in a bit. Is that my favourite? It might be. Incredible. I think some of those apple trees are... I don't remember, Bill and Howard telling me, but I think they might be over 100 years old. Most apple trees, especially if they're intensely farmed, probably don't often produce fruit after 50 years. But if they're given care and treatment and had the upbringing that orchards like this have had, this is actually on the Shropshire Welsh border, this Borders orchard, they can live for a much longer time. And some cider trees can provide fruit over 100 years. Perry trees, if you start them from an apple or a pear, from a seedling, from a seed, they take 11 to 15 years to create their first apple or pear anyway. So what you want is actually having grafted seedlings, which you can put in, which means that you can produce fruit almost straight away, well, certainly in 3-4 years. This last one is the first cider that's been made just from the orchard that they live in. It's a beautiful place on top of a mountain. You don't have to be a millionaire to feel like you've hit the jackpot, but where they live in their lovely house with their 2 crazy, lovely kids, it kind of makes you ask yourself how much more you need in life. And I think that, hanging around people like Emma's friend Annie and Hava and Bill, has had a profound effect on me over the last couple of years, and it certainly makes me want to go back to Wales more often. But these ciders, I've drunk ciders all over the world, remember, and there are some ciders from the Loire, which are very, 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 very fine, from a chap called Eric Bordelais, which cost £30 or £40 a bottle, as they should. I think these are better. I really do. Okay, so Welsh Mountainside, a Prospect Orchard. So this is made from, I think Bill told me, about 380 different varieties of apple and pear. It's just been released. 6.4%. When I smell that, it smells like Chablis, steely, slightly baked apple fool, but there's a sharpness underneath it. So much energy. You can feel a mountainside in that cider. I'm lost for words. Doesn't happen very often. But there you go. Welsh Mountain Cider, natural ciders, dry, very different. You can learn more about cider drinking these 4 drinks here than you can sitting in a pub asking what's in the fridge. Because most ciders are sulphured to the max, are given all sorts of weird treatments using yeasts which accentuate fruit. They're cleaned up in a way which actually means you're missing out on all the good bits. This is it. Warts and all. Boom. See you next time.